7:41, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'll start with introducing our president, Mr. Vince Hollinger.
If you could all please rise and join me, if you care to do so, in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance and saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do you have a timer today?
Yes, we do. That would be myself.
Phenomenal. Will, as you are 100% fully prepared, could you please give us with your predetermined opening invocation that you have obviously had in mind for some time based on today's theme and everything?
What you get by reaching your destination is not as important as what you become by reaching your destination.
Phenomenally randomly selected. You can all be seated. Well, welcome all those wonderful guests today. I believe that we have a dearth of not only guests but members today because of the impending doom snowpocalypse we have every once in a while that everyone claims is going to kill everybody. Nothing bad ever really happens. We get 2 inches instead of 2 feet, and everything just goes according to plan. And I always say, yeah, don't worry about the whole weather report thing. I really honestly start to think that maybe the weather forecasters want to say doom and gloom things. It's kind of like they're trying to get better ratings. You know what I mean? They say, yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. I honestly do believe that, because why do they keep telling us we're all going to die in a horrible blizzard every 3 or 4 weeks between December through February, when none of this ever really comes to pass? And even when there is bad weather, so I was like, okay, so it took me 3 extra minutes to get here instead of 45, and I showed up at 7 instead of 30. Very interesting. Do we have any minutes from the previous meeting, Mr. Secretary?
Unfortunately, we do not, as the previous secretary was also the Toastmaster and did not take notes.
Yes, no. Very difficult. I wonder if, I think we're probably going to have some extra time today due to dearth of members. I'm going to slide on over to, does anybody remember the TechMasters, what Azure website that's on? And maybe, I'm going to guess that we're going to have some issues in that regard. Well, bright idea ruined. Back to it. Hello, dude. Does it people issue any old business? Do we have any new business anybody would like to bring up? Nope. How about announcements? Anybody have announcements? Okay, so I will announce a few things. Office training round 2. I'm not sure. Do we have 4 people trained so far? Myself, Clea, Mohammed, you did? And I swear there was a 4th person that I already did for sure. So I think we're done. Am I right?
I didn't do it, so I don't know what's for me. Alex made one.
Man. Okay. If Alex did, then we're done. And I will confirm. And if he didn't,
What's the deadline again? Remind us.
I want to say it's at least a couple weeks. Okay. But you should check the schedule because a couple weeks first that you gotta go to Duluth to get trained. So you better check just in case. But in the meantime, I'll make sure with Alex to make sure that we've done that. If so, we got the 4th person, and we already had 4 last time. Therefore, we would have the distinguished color tone, as I had discussed the last one. Let's see. The elusive Gilded Gavel was captured. It is at Crest Toastmasters. They meet the first Saturday of the month, which is this Saturday. I thought it was every Saturday. That's why I mentioned it last week. So anyway, it is a very much more accessible time period to obtain that. So I think that the sooner the better, because I'm pretty sure that people are going to be catching that one pretty quick. So if you have some availability on this upcoming Saturday at 8:30, please stop by. We need at least one other person to show up. I'll definitely make sure that I go up there. So please show up. And when I say at least one other person, well, some other group might have 2 people. So we need 3 people, or 4 people, or 5 people. So the more the merrier. I'll send out a reminder, but please make sure that if you got nothing better to do, please stop by, because this group in particular is full of people who are very experienced in Toastmasters, and they're all, I believe they're all past district leaders. So that means these are all very high caliber people. Their whole point is to actually help out other clubs. So not only would we go there to find people who have a lot of experience in Toastmasters, but people who have a lot of ideas that could help us out. Please show up. DevOps Days calls for speakers, same with AlterConf as I mentioned before. And of course, if you haven't been in the know in the last couple weeks, we have come up with another TechMasters After Dark presentation. We've done that occasionally throughout the years, but we kind of want to make that a yearly installment. I put that on the club timeline so that every single year we'll come up with something in the January, February timeframe, so that we'll have a presentation in February or March. And this year we're going to be doing Parliamentary Procedure in Action, which is a module in Toastmasters that I read through the thing and I said, this is fantastic. It's a lot like Speechcraft, but a lot smaller. It's a 5 15-minute sessions. So I asked Mike, do you want to do it like 5 different weeks in a club, or do you want to take up one club? He said, no, do TechMasters After Dark. So we did. Anyway, it is here on February 23rd. 6 to 7:30, doors are opening at 5:30, and I sent out a flyer at an Eventbrite event about half an hour ago. So if you wanted to take a look at that and give me any feedback you want, I haven't actually promoted it. Of course, the Eventbrite thing is live, but I haven't actually promoted it yet. So if you want to give me any feedback, that'd be great. And if you care to print out the flyer or edit it yourself and maybe tell us something else you want to have on there, then go ahead and do that. You put it out your place of work or anywhere else that might attract you. And let's see, so we're having an evaluation contest, international speech contest. We're going to, like we had the humor speech contest last fall. We'll have the evaluation contest on the February 23rd meeting and the international speech contest March 1st. What we're going to do is we're going to have one speaker on the 23rd, and we're going to have people evaluate the same speech. So I would like some volunteers. Brett has volunteered to be the contest chair, so he can't obviously be a participant, and he's going to be the contest chair for both. And the March 1st meeting is going to be a little bit more comprehensive in the sense that we're going to have 3 people speaking. And the international speech contest, in case you're wondering, just means annual speech. Doesn't mean you have to talk about international things. But based on things that I've seen in the past, as far as what would win, I would suggest doing something that is maybe something a little bit more powerful or emotional, something that would be a little bit more than talking about your vacation. You know what I mean? Not quite something so easygoing. Something that would be inspiring or emotional. Something like that. Okay. And I believe that's it for announcements. Unless somebody else has any.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where are the competitions going to be held? Are they going to be held here or down?
Our club competitions will be held in our normal club meetings. I want to do that intentionally so that we make sure that we have high attendance and we don't want to put too much stress on people to shift their schedules around, things like that. All right, so awards tracker. Everybody have their manuals? All right, great, phenomenal. Awesome, great, good to see you. Get better and better. Great job. Anybody do any manual speeches last week? Oh, got people here? All right, sounds good. Today's Toastmaster is Brett, and Brett is the current treasurer and has done various leadership roles. He's been the past president, he's been a vice president membership, and I'd like to, today's theme, I believe, what did he say? I know. Oh yes, of course. He gave it to me after I gave him my intro. I was like, no, that's terrible. So I already got Gus's intro. Like, no, you don't. Not anymore, you don't. So please help me welcome Brett Esther.
Thank you, Vince. One reason why I missed the yoga is like it folds nicely. This is kind of difficult to bring up here. So welcome, fellow TechMasters, and no guest today, unfortunately. As our president mentioned, the theme today, as you all probably been following on the news with the Iowa caucuses happening, is politics. Now, if you know a little bit about my history, I've been involved for the last 2 presidential cycles, caucusing and getting involved in the local precinct and that sort of stuff. But after the last time I did it, I kind of lost my thunder and kind of tuned out a little bit to some of the political stuff because I was getting too frustrated and my wife wasn't happy with me. But this year, even if you don't like politics, I don't know how you can kind of peel yourself away from it. There's such an interesting divergence on both sides, Democratic and Republican, in the fields that they have. You look at the Democratic Party, which, you know, normal public thinks of as the diverse group, the young, new mind group, and you look at who they put up, it's all old politicians, all old white people, minus Hillary, who's a career politician, lawyer, and, you know, possibly a criminal, depending on what happens with her most recent scandal. Then you go to the Republican side, which, you know, old white men, mean, dirty scoundrels, right? But you have the most diverse field that we've had in any election. You have African American, you have Latinos, you have, I mean, you have Rand, he's a white guy, I guess. But it's just very diverse. And you have a crazy billionaire, right? So you have all this interesting things happening. And to me, it's just so strange that the Republican side has all of these candidates. So I followed the caucuses and all the debates leading up to the caucuses, mainly for sheer entertainment. So today I thought, well, let's just have a theme about that. So in that, I urge you guys, Super Tuesday is not far away. Not all of us can participate in that, but the primaries are coming up. And what better way to practice your parliamentary procedure that we're going to be learning in our TechMasters After Dark and what we do here every Tuesday, than actually use it in something that's meaningful, something that you're interested in. So I urge you all to get involved locally if you can, regardless of what aisle you stand on. I think it's definitely going to be an interesting, very interesting election. And the caucuses were very interesting too, if you watch the numbers that came out. I find it pretty amazing that Bernie Sanders and Hillary, was it 0.3% apart, which is just very, very strange to me. And, Trump didn't come first, which I kind of expected. But so lots of interest and lots of exciting things coming up with that. So let's go ahead and start the meeting and we'll practice our parliamentary procedure. And to do that, I would like to start by introducing some of the roles. And I'll start by introducing our, do we want to do introductions today? There's no guess, but I'll start by introducing the timer just so we can refresh ourselves. William, will you please tell us a little bit about your role and the timings that we are going to require?
Thank you, Brett. My role today as invocation timer is two-pronged. First is to do the invocation at the beginning and ending of the meeting. And secondly, to time the various parts of our meeting. Speeches should be generally around 5 minutes. Evaluations should be 1.5 minutes. And table topics should be around 1 minute to 1.5 minutes. I'll give you greens when you meet the time period. I'll give you yellows when you're a little bit over. And I'll give you reds telling you please wrap it up.
Thank you, Will. And even though I'm surrounded by schedules, and I have it right in front of my face, I forgot to start off the meeting with Nick, or Loris, who's the court jester, and he's not here today. So, you have a joke, Mohammed?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir.
All right. There once was a young man who, in his youth, professed his desire to become a great writer. When asked to define great, he said, "I want to write stuff that the whole world will read, stuff that people will react to on a truly emotional level, stuff that will make them scream, cry, howl, and in pain and anger. He now works writing error messages for Microsoft."
Thank you. Do we have anyone who's interested in doing an impromptu 1-minute Toastmaster? Mike Vankovich is the one who's going to be filling that role today. Or any small dose of insight they may have gathered over the week. Vince looks like he's itching.
There's wait to see if anybody else is playing. But if nobody else, well, sure. Why not?
Okay. Hello.
Hi. Oh, welcome. Well, we would normally welcome guests during the business portion of the meeting, but why not? You want to
Yeah.
How about you carry out the introduction?
Is this your first time visiting the group? Okay. Want to just maybe tell us your name and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Eric Albrecht. I am a sales engineer for a technical consulting company, and I came across your group and wanted to come check it out to learn more. I come from a technical background, and now I'm meeting with prospects and clients more and need help improving my skills with meeting people. So.
Thank you. Well, welcome. If you're a coffee drinker, there's coffee in the back. Feel free to help yourself. Hope you enjoy the meeting. We'll talk to you a little bit more during the coming break. Thanks. Vince, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Honored guest. For the 1-minute Toastmaster segment, what we like to do is we like to speak for around a minute, and the idea is to try to give us a little tidbit to get us a little bit more out of how to be a Toastmaster. Basically, the idea here is, what I'm trying to say is, if we're talking about how to get more out of Toastmasters, think about how to get more out of Toastmasters. When we talk about things like contests that we're going to be having later this month and next month, and TechMasters After Dark, and promoting the club, these are all ways that you can grow yourself and grow the club. Try to find an opportunity. Don't try to say, oh, this thing is like a job for me. Think of it as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to meet some goal that you have. Especially if you have some sort of communication or leadership goal that you have, think about how you can accomplish that goal by helping out the club in one of these different ways. And challenge yourself to do that, and I'm telling you, there's going to be fruit for that. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Vince. Tony, you are our grammarian for the day. Could you tell us a little bit about your role and provide us with the word of the day, please?
The role of the grammarian is to stand guard and watch for those ugly connecting words that we often insert into our speeches when we don't have anything really better to say. To that end, we've got this nice little bell. I'm going to try to use it. I'm also going to watch for, the other thing the grammarian does is they watch for word pictures. So if in your speaking you can come out with a picture or give us maybe a comparison. The brilliance of Brett's Toastmastering was like a wonderful sunrise. But word pictures. Find a way to illustrate what you're saying and not just say words, but maybe draw us a picture with your voice. And finally, in honor of all of the political season that we have, the word of the day is demagogue. A political leader who seeks support by appealing to popular desires and prejudices rather than using rational argument. That's when used as a noun, but it can also be used as a verb. Basically, it's the act of being a demigod, God. I'm also watching for people to use the word of the day as they speak. So demagogue us with don't demagogue us and give us the political balderdash or just general balderdash that people use, but give us some relevant things for us to learn.
Thank you, Tony. So try to use the word of the day. If you can fit it into your speech, is great. We all pretty much get an opportunity to speak, so let's try to use it when we can. Next up is my favorite part of the meeting. It's when we practice our impromptu speaking, and I want to just remind the table topics that we don't call on guests unless they raise their hand and say, please. We don't like to put people on the spot here. So walking us through table topics is longtime member and not a demagogue. See, I got mine on. Mohammed Faridi.
Sir? It's gonna be a tough one to get out in there, demagogue. But here I said a demagogue, right? Okay, does that work, Tony? We'll see. All right, so our table topics is what we're here for now, and that's the impromptu part of Toastmasters. It's one of the ones that I struggle with the most, but it gets you thinking on your feet, gets you giving answers to random questions that I may or may not have. I did find a list of 365 questions, so hopefully I'll keep this sheet. Maybe I should just throw it in the lectern here and somebody who can pick it up. That could work too. So I think we have two speakers, Marie and Vince, right? And Brett here, the Toastmaster. So in trying to keep with our theme of politics and politicking, let's start with Mick. Nick, what would you ask a presidential candidate? And what would you ask them? What do you think how they would react to it in this politically charged time that we're in?
Well, Well, that's a really good question. Thank you very much. As hard as it is to answer, morning questions, table topics, and especially for those of us who don't go here regularly, get pretty rusty. This is probably the political subject. Is probably the worst to dive into because your brain is just not up there for doing more demagoguing. But speaking of the question, if I would be only limited to one question, okay, I would probably ask them to see what really they're going to change, like one single most biggest change that they're going to make. Because when I look at them, like Brad was saying, they're all really good. They're really all good, really entertainers, but they all really talk about the same thing over and over again from just different points of views. And if you look historically at the political parties, and Vince, I'm sure you can confirm that because he knows all about the history and politics. The parties have been changing their positions. Historically, I think they swapped their positions. So now you don't really know who is who and what the difference is. So if I would be having a conversation with any of them, I would ask, hey, can you tell me clearly in a concise sentence what's going to be different when we're going to vote for you? And then I'm sure they're going to start some big demagoguing and they would lose me and I would fall back to sleep and I would lose my interest. So that would be my answer. Thank you.
Brett, in this election cycle and looking at it from a Toastmaster's perspective, where our body speaks, we use our hands, our gestures, and our vocal variety and things of that nature to kind of get our point across. Do you think it's possible to lie without saying a word?
Very good question, Mr. Table Topics Master. Is it possible to lie without saying a word? In my opinion, I believe absolutely it is possible to lie without saying a word. If you know anything about body language and how the brain functions when you're thinking or escaping, you can ask someone a pointed question, unless they're very, very, very polished and understand this and have worked on it. Their eyes will look up, they'll look down, they may posture a little bit. When we get up there, I stand like this all the time, right? That's my uncomfortable position. It's like I can't hide. We all have little tells like that. It's why there are good poker players and bad poker players. So I think it absolutely is possible to lie without saying a word. And I think most politicians do that very well and lie most of the time. They are saying words as well. So I think it's absolutely possible. I do want to touch a little bit on your first question because that's an interesting one. I've always kind of thought, what would I ask someone who was running for any office, really, especially in the higher ranks of government? And I have three that I kind of always think of is, one, how much less will you do than any other person in your position? Because that's important to me. I don't want them to really do anything. I want them to shrink government. The second is, who wrote the Federalist Papers? A lot of people don't know that. They act like they understand the founding of our country and they haven't even read some of the most important documents. And the third, which monetary policy is very important to me, is what is inflation? I think most politicians don't even understand the monetary or economic systems that are currently supporting our country or operating in our country, and they don't really understand the implications of it. So those would be the questions I'd ask. So with that, I will turn it back to the table topics master.
Thank you. Will you? At one point, before the big housing crash and the big real estate bubble and stuff like that, there was the American dream, which was to own your own home. I think that was a big push. But what do you think the American dream means now?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. This is an interesting question, and I was already phrasing how I was going to answer it or what approach I was going to take. And I think I've changed my mind. So I'm going to use a political kind of tactic, and I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to talk about something that came into my mind when I heard Nick answering this first question. And that is, what would you ask the politicians? And being that our word of the day is demagogue, and it has to do with kind of making an argument that really doesn't have substance, it brought me back to a website that I found years ago and still refer back to once in a while called Your Fallacy Is. And Your Fallacy Is describes all these logical fallacies. And if you watch most of these political type discussions, debates, even caucuses, and then you go to Your Fallacy Is, you can usually pick these things out. And such as Brett was saying that most people don't know who wrote the Federalist Papers, a lot of people don't know that these techniques and these strategies exist. You can see it with car dealers when they try to sell you a car. And it's fun to go, I know what you're doing there. I know exactly what you're doing. So I'm sorry that I didn't answer your question directly, but I do want people to go check out Your Fallacy Is and keep it in mind if you're watching the caucuses. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony. When you're watching the debates and you're going through it, you're listening to counterpoint, there are points where people would, plead ignorance or pretend to be a little innocent. What do you think the difference is between innocence and ignorance, and how does it play into the debates?
Thank you, Mr. Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored guest. What's the difference between innocence and ignorance? Innocence is sort of that state that one is in originally and starts out and honestly doesn't know something. In fact, one can be innocent and ignorant at the same time because they apply to different topics almost. Ignorant is more about not knowing something, and in many cases where it conflicts with being innocent is deciding not to know something. The demagogue frequently chooses not to know what the other party or opponents are really saying or thinking or presenting, and just beats down their topic and says, I'm the best. The innocent person just honestly doesn't know. Thank you.
I think that's all our candidates for table topics. And with that, I'll turn it back over to our esteemed Toastmaster.
Thank you for the great questions. Tony, I really liked your innocence and ignorance can be done at the same time. It is definitely an important difference. Well, this is the time of the meeting where we take a short break. We can get our coffee and chat a little bit. It's about 10 after right now. I'd like to reconvene at 8:15 on the button. I'd like to call the general evaluator. I think Mohammed, you volunteered for that position. And the evaluating speakers to please come up to the podium.
We still have one. Still have two.
So, evaluator, speaker, and who's the other evaluator?
Was
It's Tony.
Tony's
Tony's the evaluator.
let's see. I guess I'll go.
Tony will evaluate Vince, Nick will evaluate Marie, and your speeches are along.
Next 5 to 7. Who's going first?
Yes.
Do you need the screen? You can go first.
Whichever is easier.
Yeah, Vince, are you using the projector?
Yes.
You are, okay, why don't you go first? You wanna go first, though? Okay. Let's go first.
I'm going to be talking about why people should attend, what it is, and a little bit about the reasons behind it, and about why people should attend. It's 2 months. It's a conference about technical people in tech who face certain marginalizations communities. So I'll be kind of describing, walking through what it is, what it is, the typical presentations, and why everyone should really go. So I found an evaluation. What's that? Yeah, I'm doing one of the. It's out. Yeah, it's bouncing between one. He said. Policies.
Straw man.
Well, straw man. So it's not this.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Ideological policies that.
When you hover over those things, you want to think the first one.
What we're trying to
You made it.
because these are a little bit.
Yeah, this is a pretty much. Well, like, and her name was. We had some sale. I think not much.
Yeah, I thought we should have it here.
Yeah, a lot of people are bringing up, tech people speaking 50% of that, and other people like.
I was going to try to persuade. I think, persuade about why. Persuade or persuade. Yeah, we're trying to say why. Why people should attend this conference and why it's some of the rationale for this conference. Okay. Thank you.
Somebody else.
I don't think I did it, no. I have.
They can still have mine there, but
Oh, I think they're all by the guest book.
Oh, they're all over there now?
All right. Most of the time. Yeah.
Article has been around since 2008, somewhere there officially, and it's fine. And they were signed.
It's not acceptable. It's not there anymore.
It's a
So what happens when you excuse what you do?
Or you took it home with you. I take mine home.
Oh, did you?
It's by accident. I showed it.
I thought that's
I'm sure you got some.
Yeah.
All right, how are you? Where are you working?
This gig and
Hello.
I'm too lazy to switch it. Actually, I'm not too lazy to switch it, you know, and.
Most of, well, not switch, most, several of our members use this as their speaking account. Somewhat active.
It's great, but you know, for.
It's great, but it's just, we're all staying here with school.
Because when they look at your resume, they say, hey, I've been on this company, like, we really,
What are they?
well, the company as a whole.
You ready? Are you ready, man?
Because, you know,
Hold on. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's here, first slide up.
Am I wrong?
Could be wrong. Alright. It's 5:15 after, and I would like to call the meeting back into order. And I'll turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, Brett Casterberg.
Sir? We now enter the prepared speaking portion of our meeting. This is always one of my favorite parts. We get to see prepared speeches by two different members today. And starting off is our president. He's a founding member. He's been with the club since its beginning. He's probably the most active president we've had. He's got a whole bunch of stuff going on, trying to tighten up how we do Toastmastering. And so that's been really fun to watch. He's also been an IT consultant for almost 10 years now. Around 2005 he started. 2008 he got his MCSD certification, and now he is our local resident cross-platform mobile guru. Speaking today on high performance leadership, please help me welcome our club president, Vince Ballinger.
Thank you, Brett. Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about high performance leadership establishing fruitful relationships. I would like everybody to close your eyes. Oh, wait. So wait on you. Imagine that we had double the number of members that we have today. Now, I understand today we had a few people not showing up based on weather, but imagine that we had double the membership that we currently have. Imagine having a steady and passive influx of new guests and members to replace those that moved to Arizona or have sabbaticals that they take to Yellowstone or get scooped up by Microsoft to give speeches as an evangelist all around the world or members that pass away. Imagine spreading reasons for joining and the reasons that you currently have for staying at TechMasters to many others. Imagine that when you ask, hey, have you ever heard of TechMasters before? The answer is always a resounding yes. Well, open your eyes. Well, I agree today to make that vision a reality, and I want you to help me. High Performance Leadership is a Toastmasters project. It's part of getting your advanced leader silver. And Tony has my book that looks exactly like that right there. It is 5 projects offering instruction and practice in developing a vision, goal setting and planning, developing plans and strategies, team building, and feedback. So this is something that's supposed to be done a little bit above what the typical club is. You can do it within the club, you can do it anywhere. You can have something to do with running a charity or running some kind of event or some kind of initiative you take at work, anything like that. And my project is establishing fruitful relationships within our club. Now, the whole point was I figured I wanted to double dip, triple dip, try to do as many things that we can compact into one thing. We have a membership building drive called Talk Up Toastmasters, and I think that this really fits in line here. And we have a few initiatives that we're doing right now that seem to really mesh well. So I really wanted to dive into this kind of thing. So why did I choose this for a project? We haven't really connected with the community in a fruitful and sustained manner. Every once in a while we try to create a relationship, or when we first started, Mike used all of his clout to go ahead and make as many connections as he did right away. And that's really kind of been the only thing we've really done. I had an interesting conversation a couple months ago with the CEO of Island, Luna, right here. And after the meeting, she came up to me, she started asking me things like, so do you work for TechMasters full time? Are you guys all employees of TechMasters? She didn't quite understand the concept of who we are and what we do. This is the person who runs this company that hosts us, having no clue who we are and what we do at all whatsoever. The person who leads the .NET user group is somebody who has worked here before, and of course it's run right here, and is someone who I think should be reaching out to us. They never have whatsoever, as far as I've ever known. Definitely not when I've been president. To say, hey, we need some topics. Do you guys have any ideas? We have a lot of people who give a lot of presentations at user groups and conferences. We have a lot of people with a lot of ideas. We have a lot of people who have actually presented at the .NET user group because we reached out to them individually, right? But we don't have that sustained relationship. In fact, specifically, I know Jeffrey personally. He still hasn't talked to me at all whatsoever about our group. So I think we should probably kindle that and make that an ongoing thing so that when he needs a call for speakers, he says, hey, TechMasters, do you have anybody you might want to talk? Because guess what? Probably have a canned talk that we can just bring out, and will probably be better than 99% of the presentations that they give in that group. It fits into the Talk Up Toastmasters membership building drive, like I said. It will help bring people into the fold. It will help bring awareness to the club and things like that. As part of this project, I had to turn the visions that I just discussed earlier when you were all closing your eyes and thinking about what you were thinking of was my vision for the project, right? And I had to turn that into a mission statement. So I said, the mission of this high performance leadership project is to establish strong, ongoing relationships with tech firms and tech communities in the nearby area to generate sustained interest in our club and to add more guests and members on a consistent basis, spread the benefits of our club to others who want to improve their speaking and leadership skills and reap the benefits from CEO's compassion to potential members. So it's supposed to be a lot more specific than the highfalutin close your eyes and dream kind of thing that I had before. The core values of this project and the way that I kind of want anybody involved to think when they're involved is to, number one, the relationships that we're going to be fostering should be thought of and started off by thinking, how can we help them? how can we help that group? How can we help that company? What can we do for you? What can we do for your employees? Things like that. Do you want us to come and give a brown bag presentation on public speaking or any kind of technology that any of us may know? Would you like us to let's say there's somebody who needs some architectural guidance. Guess what? Maybe Donnie has some sort of canned presentation or some kind of idea that you may want to give out to the group. Whatever it is, all of our talents, we might be able to help that company. And in whatever capacity they want to do. Maybe they want to start their own club and they have no use for us specifically because they don't want to cart 10 people over here. Maybe they can start their own club. Whatever it is, the relationship should start off, how can we help you? Every member can provide ideas to connect and help firms and communities. While I'm supposed to be doing the majority of the work, the idea is that I should be crowdsourcing the ideas. How can we connect? Like I said, maybe we do something like offer, like, hey, you guys have brown bag things. Let us know if you want any kind of influx of ideas or if you have anything that you want as far as public speaking or leadership or anything like that. But of course, we all know tech. We can talk about those things too. And any idea along those lines. However else we can help them or how we can bring more people in. Every member should consider how an engagement can help them grow. Like I was saying in my 1-minute Toastmaster, I was kind of using that as a way to extend what I was saying here. Think about how we can be helping them and how we can increase relationships in a way that can also help you. So for example, let's say there's a company, maybe a firm that has either a dearth of talent in what you can do, or maybe specializes in a talent that you can do. And it might be nice for you to connect to them. Or if you gave a presentation and knocked their socks off and they said, we want to bring this guy in for whatever kind of role it is. This could be an opening for you as well. And if you have some major project that you need to complete in your leadership manual or in your communication manual or something, maybe you could use this as an opportunity to go ahead and knock out something that might be a little more difficult. So try to think about not only, like I was saying, double, triple, quadruple dip on trying to get some value for everything that we're doing. Use it as an opportunity for growth. Relationships should be sustainable for future administrations. As I was saying, we put in some effort, especially Mike, right away when this club was first created to get the word out there and do some things to try to generate interest. But how are we supposed to sustain that into the future? I want to make sure that my ideas and anybody else's ideas are something that we can put into a repeatable fashion and put it in the club timeline for the president to think about maybe in the January area where there's a bit of a lull in things to do, to try to reach out and reestablish those relationships. You know, hey, it's been a year, we haven't talked to you guys. Do you want us to come in and do that thing again or something like that? So call to action. What I want from you guys is I want all of your suggestions. If you have thought of an idea that was spinning in your head while I was talking, or if you can think of anything in the next few weeks, let me know. I'd like to know maybe whether it's particular firms or different kinds of communities that you think would be a good reach or a good outreach thing, some sort of a good partnership kind of challenge, that sort of thing. And how can we help others in the community? In what ways can we do that? Like I said, brown bags, that sort of thing. How can we use these engagements to help you achieve your goals? Whatever way you can think of it. Because, like I said, while I may end up doing a lot of the work, it should be a team effort in order to get all these things done, and at the same time, you can be accomplishing a lot of your goals. Mr. Toastmaster.
To validate some of the value that I personally have gotten out of this club, you know, Vince mentioned going places and maybe doing brown bags with developers or tech staff. And that's something that I've done on several occasions. I've been called in to speak on something that they've seen me speak at a presentation on. And almost every time it's ended in, do you want to work here? And it's either been full-time or contract, but you know, it's a very good way to raise credibility. People see you as someone who knows what they're doing, and it's just really good for credibility. So it's a really great benefit of being part of this club. Next, a relatively new member, someone who joined us about it's been 6 months yet? I'm not sure, not quite 6 months. She is a principal security engineer for some Fortune 500 company, an unnamed Fortune 500 company. She's been doing it for 15 years, and she says she enjoys finding flaws in security systems. So maybe I should bring her to look at some of the systems that I've put together. Please help me welcome Marie Fromm.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I'm going to talk today about AlterConf. It's a conference coming up in about 2 months. It's an interesting conference. It's a little bit different from other technical conferences, and that AlterConf really focuses on people who experience discrimination or other areas in the tech and gaming industry. So this is actually a pretty important thing about bringing in alternative voices and alternative people who are often marginalized in tech. This is a huge economic opportunity to bring in more people. Some has said that having more diversity in tech could be $1 billion opportunity. I'm going to talk about a little bit of statistics, some anecdotes, some personal experiences, and what can be done. So this conference is a traveling conference. I'm really excited it's coming to the Twin Cities. It's been in several cities around the nation over the last couple of years. And what they do is they bring in local speakers that are members of various communities to talk about issues and envision how we can make tech a more inclusive place for all. There's been a number of specific voices. For instance, there's been presentations by women in tech. Some of the presentations have names that in the past conferences around the country, Coding Like a Girl, what they didn't tell you about being a techie and a new mom. Unconscious biases, addressing stealth barriers to gender diversity in tech. There's been presentations by people of color. Presentation names like Managing While Black, Conforming to Succeed, and what it means for people of color. There's been presentations by the LGBT community, which I'm a member of as being out and transgender. So there's been presentations like Learning from Gay-Straight Alliances to Increase Diversity in Tech, and 5 Simple Steps for Trans-Inclusive Data, and it's hard out here for a dyke, being a lesbian in games. There's also been presentations just on general diversity and understanding, like titles such as Programmer Culture in Tech, and increasing diversity, the $1 billion economic opportunity. Job candidates, how to handle problematic and sometimes actually illegal questioning in job interviews. And why a conference specifically for these voices? Well, if you're a straight white male at a conference and you look around, everybody looks just like you should question why that is, because there's a lot of very diverse people in tech. And a lot of those communities are not coming to conferences in some spaces. And I'm going to talk about a couple of experiences I've had. 2 years ago, I was at an information security conference with a friend. And she's actually the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer for Princeton. She's relatively short. And we discovered, this is a C-level position she holds, and I hold a senior position at the company I work for. And we were at a tech conference, and we got talked over, condescended. There was over and over, people ignored us, and it was really frustrating. I went to the conference to look. My objective was to get some specific information, learn some things for a new project. And I had a difficulty getting a vendor to even talk to me and take me seriously enough. He made assumptions about who I was, and I wanted to speak to an engineer, and instead he handed me off to a young woman dressed in spandex, which was really frustrating at the booths. So I think, and oftentimes women are stereotyped in tech and said, well, they're not technical, they can't understand. I have a friend, she's an excellent security person. She's also Muslim, and she wears a hijab. And there's no way she's going to go to a computer security conference, or for that matter, many conferences right now, because of the politicized nonsense people are saying about Muslims and the assumptions they make about her, the stuff she's heard. She's a voice that really should be out there talking in certain topics, and you're not going to see her in conferences. I think of an experience I had about 3 years ago where in my past I actually did some Unix kernel programming. And I was in a group of people and some guy was talking about the difficulties in debugging Unix kernel stuff. It is very difficult to do. And I agreed with him and stated, yeah, I remember that was really a difficult thing. And he interrupted me. He said, oh no, you don't understand what I'm talking about. There's only a few of us guys that actually do that. So he couldn't comprehend that a woman or a trans woman could possibly have any idea. And he just dismissed me and kind of pushed aside. It was 9 years ago or so, I was at a computer conference and I was actually physically assaulted by two very large guys. And what was surprising to me about that, not necessarily that I get assaulted because I'm trans and that kind of stuff happens, but nobody said a word. I mean, nobody tried to stop them. Nobody even said, knock it off. And that was kind of astonishing to me to see these people just staring at me while these two guys, these two programmers, so upset with my gender, they beat me up to make themselves feel good about theirs. You know, sexual assault, that happens to women in conferences. I know women that have been harassed, friends who have been harassed and assaulted. I have a friend who was actually roofied at a conference. And, you know, it brings a different mindset. When I'm at a conference, a tech conference, I do not let a drink leave my hand. If I've got a Pepsi or a coffee, it does not leave my hand. And if I set it down for any reason, I will buy another. And I bet as a straight white male, you have never really thought of conference spaces as being demeaning, hostile, or outright dangerous. And it is for some communities. And I talk about an experience I had about 3 months ago. And there's always that one guy that mentally or psychologically is still living in his mom's basement or whatever, even though he's 35, I don't know. I'd been coming to Toastmasters for a couple weeks. I'd met several of you and really decided I wanted to join this club and learn to speak better in public. And there was a guy and he was trying to figure me out. He was a visitor that came one morning and I could tell he was trying to figure me out. A lot of people do. And I don't mind. I'm out as trans. I don't have a problem talking about it or answering questions. And he was asking some kind of strange questions and on the parking lot. And he really seemed to have a hard time believing that I was a senior technical security engineer. And then he said, oh, I get it. You're smart like a dude, but you have tits. And and then he went on to say some other things that I can't repeat. And then he looked at me in a way that really freaked me out. And then I drove north on 100 that morning, crying and screaming. And I actually was thinking, I'm not going back. Fortunately, I'd been emailing a couple, Clea and Vince and a couple things. And I thought, I maybe won't be there next week. I know a couple others will be, so I'll try it out. He hasn't shown back up and I'm here. So I mean, these sort of things, it kind of comes with the territory of being trans. I know people say incredibly stupid things, but it has made me want to avoid a lot of tech gatherings for that very reason, for that one guy. And so in tech conferences, the anti-harassment policies are really important. Those things do several things. They kind of hopefully let know the people that are clueless, maybe there's a minimum threshold for behavior. And they also serve as a signal to people in some of these other communities that do face some of these issues in tech gatherings. And let them know that, hey, this is, we've thought about trying to make this a safer space. And also, I think, really good and really prominent anti-harassment policies do an important thing, is they empower people, straight allies and cisgender white Christian men to speak up and say, and what to do when they see harassment, instead of just standing there watching somebody get beat up, which is really unfortunate. And it helps to develop some of that cultural competency of people who are different from you. So I'd like to really point out that AlterConf is a conference of voices that you've probably never heard before. These are people in tech, but you won't see them at other conferences for a lot of reasons. And so these are some of the reasons you might want to consider going.
to learn more about the perspectives of some of these marginalized groups and voices in our tech communities. And just because, I guess a couple of points is, just because you don't know a thing exists doesn't mean it does not exist. And Proust said, the real voyage of discovery consists not of seeking new landscapes, but of having new eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that speech. I'm not sure. I heard that someone from our club said that to you?
Yes. I'll
He
give you
was
that
big.
more.
I just want to make sure I understood it.
Yes.
Interesting. That stuff, I mean, obviously it happens. Your word picture of sitting in a conference, you know, even guys that I work with will be at a conference, and we'll look around and like there's no cute girls here or whatever. And there's very, very few women. I see it changing a little bit, but you know, you go to a tech conference and it's mostly white guys or Indian guys, right? There's a lot of Indian workers here, but it is not a very, very diverse thing. And sometimes I have a good friend, Joshua, who's the .NET developer here in the city, and she'll walk into the .NET user group, sometimes being the only woman, and she's very attractive, and all the heads just turn. It's like she's kind of learned to brush it off now, but that is intimidating for her. She's mentioned it to me a few times. So it does exist. So, interesting. Thank you for that speech. Next, we move on to the evaluation portion. Acting as our general evaluator today is Mohammed. He's going to walk us through the evaluation process. And yeah, welcome.
All right. Well, before we get started, let's, with the two speeches fresh in our mind, let's bow our heads and vote. For those who thought Vince was the better speaker with high performance leadership, please raise your hand. Thank you. And for those who thought Marie did a better job with Ultracon, please raise your hands. Thank you. All right. So with speeches out of the way, we'll get to our evaluation portion of the speaking portion. Thank you. We'll call on the evaluator. Tony, if you would stand up and evaluate Vince.
Vince, thank you for your speech, your efforts on behalf of the club, and all of the work that you're putting into trying to grow this group. I think it was great how you started telling people to close their eyes and take some time to try and draw out the vision and make that vision real and give out a real vision. That was a great way to open. I think the goals that you've got are fantastic. Let's grow this. Let's grow the club. Let's find ways to build better relationships with both businesses and other groups in the community. Those are things that we really want to do. And I think you've probably sold most of us. I would like to have seen, well, first a little technical thing on some of the slides. I'd like to see maybe a different color scheme or something so that there's a little bit more contrast. So, you know, the faded grayish, bluish gray on the black, maybe instead of that, bright white or even black on white, or I think I've seen like yellow on blue, but something that's a little bit more contrast for those of us who have some vision, it may have some vision issues. Leave the mission statement up a little bit longer. It's a long thing to put up and show. I think your mission statement, too many mission statements are filled with buzzwords and a lot of words. I'd like to have read it a little bit more in depth, and hopefully this will be published to everybody. It looks fairly good. Core values. I'd like to see, I have a thing with these core values that companies do like my company, we have a bunch of slogans that look good, I think, to bookkeepers. You know, maybe to Wall Street, but for motivating employees, they're not so great. I would like to see maybe instead of a full sentence, 1 or 2 words, something that was a little less, you know, a little less there, but just is the core of the concept. Build for the future instead of let's keep this in mind for future administrations, which is sort of a little bit of a buzzword. Overall, I think you have a great vision and I want to see it enacted. And I think this is a good step towards moving us in that direction. And I'd like to see, I look forward to seeing where you take this vision with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And Nick, if you would kind of evaluate Marie, that would be great.
Great. Well, thank you very much for giving us a great presentation. Let me first talk about the good things that I liked about your speech. I think you picked a really interesting topic. I think everybody was involved and we all learned a lot of new things. You were passionate about the topic, which is great. I mean, it just helps to persuade people, and that was I assume that was the reason you wanted to do the speech to persuade people to go to the conference. I think you achieved your purpose with the passion and how much of yourself you put into it. As far as the structure of the speech, really good introduction, good, like I said, good content, and good call for action at the end. As far as your voice, good rate, good vocal variety, probably again because you were speaking with passion, so that always helps. As far as the speech itself, I personally learned a lot of new things. Like Brett was saying, as a guy, I spent my whole life in this industry, and I'm always surrounded with the dudes. So I never thought about any other, like positions out there. So it's really interesting to see what's happening. I know some girls in the industry, but those girls that I know, they go there because they want to meet some guys in the industry. So they definitely have different opinions. So that was really interesting. Like, really thank you for that. So, like I said, this is really good. Thanks for doing it. A manual speech, that's also important for the club. You might want to is your eye contact. I don't know, maybe you were a little nervous because you were passionate, but I didn't think I was trying to make an eye contact. I don't know if anybody else got it, but I was watching your eyeballs and they were just going like all over. Some eye contact helps them. Maybe try to rely less on the notes, which would also presentation. But other than that, so this is for you, and thank you very much.
Right, and evaluations, fresh in our minds, if we could all bow. And for those, Tony did a better evaluation, please raise your hands. Thank you. And for those who thought Nick did a better evaluation of Marie, please raise your hands. Thank you. All right. This time, I would like to call on the grammarian for the grammarian report and the word picture of the day.
Thank you. We did fairly good with not putting too many ahs and ums and such into our speeches. Although I will say, Nick, your rate, your rate, you're approaching 10 per minute. You may want to think about that and work on that. And Marie, wonderful speech. You had a few too many, you had a lot of ums in there. And that might have been because I think you were kind of nervous about something so personal. But I love the pictures that you drew for us. Just on that basis, I have to give this to you.
Thank you. now I'd like to call on the timer for the timer report.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Timer report today is table topics. Nick was 1 minute 30. Everyone made the minimum. Nick, 1 minute 35. Brett, 1 minute 45. Myself, 1 minute 38. And Tony, 1 minute 25. Moving on to speeches. Vince, your speech on high performance leadership, 7 minutes 27 seconds. And your evaluation from Tony, 3 minutes 10 seconds. Marie, your speech on the AlterConf was 10 minutes 12 seconds. And Nick, your evaluation was 2 minutes. On my part, I did not go up with the speakers and the general evaluator up in front and figure out what the actual length of the speeches were. So that's on me. But that's today's time report.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call on the Table Topics Master to present the wise old owl. The table topics were interesting. I think everybody did a great job of responding to the questions that they were given, except for Will, who chose not to. That's okay. That's another strategy of doing things. That's the way you do it. But I think today's wise old owl goes to Tony with his innocence and ignorance at the same time. I think that made a lot of sense to me. Okay, best speakers and evaluator awards. All right. So best speaker, best evaluator today. The evaluator is given the nice little dead fish or the keychain because evaluations are key. So the best evaluator today was Nick. Wow, that's better left in. I'm surprised. All right. And now for the best speaker. The best speaker today was Marie. Thank you. All right, general evaluation of the meeting. I will keep that short. It was a meeting started on time. It seemed like we were on task, going on, doing the right thing. I think the speeches took a little bit longer, but that's okay. We didn't have that much table topics or enough participants in the table topics, which is fine too. But I'd like to talk about the speeches today. I think Vince, with your high performance evaluation or high performance leadership speech was great. I think it shows that as the president and as the leader of the club, you are always thinking about the club and putting it first and trying to push us into directions that we may not have gone before. And presenting to us every time you come up with something new is a good way of bringing the club into where we are and where you think we're going. And soliciting feedback is awesome. So for everybody who wants to respond to Vince, please make sure you send him an email or contact him after the meeting or talk to him however you may, so that we can get those goals going in that direction. Marie, your speech was, I guess I don't know what word to use for it. I think it was very well done. I think the topic was kind of uncomfortable, and that's probably why you had a little bit of eye contact. You weren't looking at everybody. That's fine. But the material you presented was phenomenal. It gave me a perspective that I didn't have before. So I thank you for that. Other than that, I think I'll just turn it back over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. As your Toastmaster for the day, I get to give a few awards that we do at the end here. This is the Visual Impact Award. We normally reserve this for really, really good PowerPoint and really good visual aids. And to me today, there was a lot of really good imagery and word pictures. And I want to actually maybe give this a little bit differently. I want to give this to Vince for the introduction of your speech, because while it wasn't visual on the screen, close your eyes and we're imagining these things. And I was going through the motions in my head, and mentally, visually, it was very impactful. So. And the spark plug is for the person who brings the most excitement to the group today. I don't know, this is a tough one. Any nominations for this? It's kind of a quiet day today. Anyone?
Tony.
Tony? Tony, you get the spark plug.
I mean, Tony.
Hey.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everyone for a great meeting. I believe we're doing pretty well on time with the clock's not behind me anymore. The speeches were great. Inside your speech, it's nice that you kind of are transparent with your visions and that sort of thing. And it's nice that you're giving us that information and taking advantage of your personal goals with the manuals that you're working on now. So that was very nice. Marie, obviously, we enjoyed your speech. Again, perspective that we don't have is always a good thing. And I think a lot of us know that that stuff happens at varying levels to different people. And sometimes it doesn't affect us. We don't think a whole lot about it. So that was nice to hear. The theme was politics, but we didn't really, outside of my rant in the beginning and the table topics, didn't do too much about it, and then that's fine. But I do urge you guys all to, if you have political leanings, to get involved. You know, we are a nation of citizens. We're supposed to govern, so try to get involved locally if you can. Even the smallest amount would be good, and it's a great experience. So with that, I'm going to bring this meeting to a close and turn it over to our club president. Vince.
Thank you, Brett. Before we leave, do we have any new business? How about any closing announcements? A couple things, since we have a couple minutes left. So I always find that it's not fair, man. It's not fair that I don't have these touching stories. I can't compete. It's like, hey guys, let's do something important. Yeah, well, I had bad stuff happen to me. I lose. I can't compete. You know, and it's hard for me to connect when I'm the Christian white male cisgender that I got no ways of being held down at all. I'm the man. Anyway, so next week's Toastmaster, I'm trying to remember who that is. Let me quick take a look here. We got the schedule going on here. And let's see, we're going to test it right there. That'd be Mike. So if I'll make sure to reach out to Mike and make sure that he has a theme out. We want to do this a little more quickly, and so that we have a little bit more preparation. When you give out a theme and people don't have enough time to prepare for it, it's a little harder to fudge it in, and then you're like, hey, we didn't quite get to the theme as much. Well, that's the kind of thing we want to do and move forward in that regard. And I'll try to get the VP of Education to push that out as well. But one thing I was thinking about is with my site redesign, we have a lot of options. And I was noticing a lot of APIs for Meetup that were really nice. And it'd be really cool if we tied all that in together. Something like on Tuesday, it just automatically, or with a push of a button, reads with a Google API. We can read the schedule. We can send out a more customized email with the different roles, and the Toastmaster can reply with a theme, that sort of thing. And I think we can kind of automate these things for the next few weeks. So any ideas like that would be nice as well. All right, let's move back over here. And do we have a closing thought from the timer? We certainly do.
Indeed, we do. Today's closing thought: if your outflow exceeds your inflow, your upkeep will be your downfall.
With that, I will close the meeting.